sexually harass a general and demand a date. When I was commissioned into the Air Force, the officer who conducted the ceremony was a female 3-star general. She looked like your typical short, fit, friendly, middle-aged soccer mom, relevant to the story, of course, extremely nice and personable, and an alumni of my university. At breakfast beforehand, we were sharing a table, and she and my dad, a lieutenant colonel at the time, were talking. The general told the story of when she first showed up to the new base for her first posting as a 3-star. While running on track, a guy comes up and starts running alongside, asking if she had just got there, etc. It quickly becomes very obvious he's hitting on her, so she turns him down and mentions that she has a husband. He is not deterred and keeps on hitting on her. The man goes right on talking about how in shape she is, how good looking she is, how they should get together, etc. Also asking questions like, well, is your husband at the base yet? Are you staying by yourself in the TLF? The TLF is being a fancy sort of hotel. He thinks she's a spouse and figures she showed up to get the home in order before her husband arrives. He really wants to hang out, preferably at her hotel room. Nor will he leave her alone until she agrees to a date. Finally, after about 15 minutes of him refusing to stop badgering her, she relents and agrees to meet up with him again. Fine. I'll free up some time and we can talk. What's your name and number? The harasser gives her his name and phone number. He's a staff sergeant, many rungs down the organization she's now a vice commander of. Later that day, he was ordered to report to her office in service dress at 07:30 the next morning, along with his supervisor, his first sergeant, and his commander. So basically, his boss, his other boss, and his boss's boss's boss. She didn't say how the meeting went, but I doubt he enjoyed his date. Alright, this is the best way to get on a corporal shit list in like less than 5 seconds. You are now personally to blame for literally anything and everything that goes wrong in that camp, all because you couldn't keep it in your pants. Out of all the people you could have messed with was a 3-star general. Your 3-star general. No remorse. There is no remorse. I'm sorry. I've never been in the military, but I know that's bad. That is really, really bad. And like literally, you are on the thinnest of ice. Every move you make, every breath you take, they'll be watching you. Add up what everyone owes me? Sure thing, boss. This happened a few years back, but I remember it at work today. I work at a spa salon at the front desk. The employees get a pretty good discount on services, so plenty of them get their nails, lashes, hair, etc. done regularly. The rule is pay when your service is done, like any other client. But some wiggle room was allowed in case of payday is tomorrow. I'll pay as soon as the money gets through. Or if the front desk was busy helping clients and they say they had to leave. We know where they will be tomorrow morning at 9. We would put these services on hold and the employee would pay ASAP. It mostly worked on the honor system of don't abuse it or we can't have nice things anymore. Most employees were pretty good about it, but of course, there were the few that regularly forgot for days or weeks. I can't pay today, I'll pay tomorrow, and these few were usually ones with the most seniority. In years worked, not power. One of these employees in particular was far worse than the others. On to the compliance. One day, the owner comes to pick up some things and asks someone on the desk, "What is the little button with 23 notifications on it?" I stepped in and answered, "Well, that's the staff service that are on hold. We have less than 23 employees, which means one or more employees owe for multiple services." The owner exploded. She started shouting that it's absolutely ridiculous that this many people owed her money and how could you let it get this far? And who are the employees that owed? So I start to reply, well, most of them are. She cuts me off and says, "Just add it up now and tell me so I can talk to them about taking it out of their paychecks." I start to open up the window and show the list of employees who owed for the services and said, "Okay, just letting you know that the reason there are so many," and she cuts me off again and says, "You guys," the front desk I guess, "always have an excuse. There is no excuse, just do it," and storms off in the staff room. My other desk worker, who had been hiding in the bathroom, I can't blame her to be honest, comes out and asks, "Did she just see the names on the list?" I replied she did not, and got to work on my list, writing out the names of the employee next to their total owing for their services in order from the most owed to the least. About 30 minutes later, the boss comes down and all her holy terror demands the list. I handed it to her, and after glancing at it for a moment, she froze. Y'all, if you've never seen someone lose their steam in front of your eyes, I highly recommend it. At the top of my list is the owner's adult daughter's name, who happens to be an employee and consequently owes the spa nearly $400 in services after her 50% discount and not including tax. She had gone back to school recently and was only working part-time, so I guess she was short on money and regularly snuck out without paying for her lashes and her nails. Back to my shell-shocked boss. After staring at the list for a moment in silence, she went over to the computer, opened up the list on hold, services, and scrolls through. 90% of the services on hold are her daughter's. After a few more minutes of staring at the list, she finally looks up and says, "I'm her mother and the owner, so I guess I'm going to have to pay this. However, I want all receipts to give to her, and she is not to get any services unless she prepays. I'll tell her this myself. Make sure the rest of the on-holds are paid by the end of the employee's next shift." I cashed her daughter's services out, bundled the receipts, gave them to my boss, and she thanked me and left. I am simultaneously sad and relieved that I wasn't present for the verbal ass whooping her daughter received. You know, this story went a lot differently than I thought it was going to be. Initially, I thought it was going to be the owner who was the one that owed a lot of money. But in fact, it was actually her daughter. But one thing I definitely want to say is I am really happy to see this particular manager, this particular owner, take ownership of the situation. The problem being her daughter and the fact that the money was owed. She could have just sat there and go, well, I own the place, so I don't have to pay any of this. No. Instead, she's like, you know what? I'll take responsibility, but God damn it, my daughter is on the chopping block when I get home tonight. And I'm glad she took responsibility. I really am. This is not your typical story that you see on Malicious Compliance. But boy, I'd hate to be in that daughter's shoe when you get home, Ma's sitting there with her receipts and just staring at you like, hey, forget something? That is some good-ass parenting. I won't say that. Want us to clock out our time but not pay us? I work at a call center for a company that handles customer service calls for a telecom provider. We use the timekeeping system called Chronos to clock in and out of work and break time. At one point, they started to round our clock out times to the time the call center queue closed, which meant that if we clocked out at 8:15, they would round it down to 8 o'clock. Often enough, we would have calls coming in at 7:59 or 8 o'clock, which could easily go on for 5 or 15 minutes. After we talked to our management about this, and they refused to change the policy back, we started to log out at exactly 8 p.m. This meant telling customers that we were now closed, and to call back in the following morning. After 3 days, the policy was reversed, and we were also allowed to clock in 5 minutes before, so we could open up our systems. See, I've worked with the Chronos system once before. It's just really hard to manipulate if you got to get in there and you got to fix some things. I really hate the Chronos system so much. But one thing I definitely want to say is this business has some shady practices. These people could have gotten sued for stealing time and money from their employees. Like, legit, that could have been a lawsuit. Seriously, a really bad lawsuit for all the time missed. I don't know why they didn't even go after them for that. If it was a long enough time and like 15 minutes adds up. So let's say you make, I don't know, $10 an hour. That's $250. That's $250 every time you have to stay 15 minutes over. I'm glad the employees took the initiative and went, well, if I'm not getting paid after this, we're done. So I'm glad they jumped ahead, and I'm also happy to hear that the company decided to change its mind and its tone after that. But I would like to see the employees paid reparations for the time and money that was taken from them initially, and at least like a bonus or some sort of form of paycheck or something, because it's wrong for a company to steal from their employees. So those are my opinions. That's my thoughts. My favorite story, easily, hands down, was number 1. I love that in every single way in fashion. It was just great. I loved how it just came crashing down on them. And like, ladies and gentlemen, this is a pure example of keep it in your pants. So tell me what your favorite one was in the comment section below. I always read them. I always enjoy them. I thank you guys very much for watching, and I thank you very much for following along. If you're new here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to ring that bell because YouTube won't tell you when I upload. Literally ever. So thank you guys very much for watching. You guys have been great. You guys have been fantastic. And as usual, as always, my friends, stay frosty and keep moving forward.